This is an ad by BetterHelp. BetterHelp recently surveyed over 16,000 people and found that while 75% of people believe it's wise to seek support, only 27% of Americans are in therapy, and people stay silent to avoid being judged. BetterHelp has over 10 years of experience matching you with the right therapist. Because we're all better with help. Visit betterhelp.com/stopthestigma for their first ever State of Stigma report, the latest in mental health research.
Hey there, this is Alexis Knight, your no-nonsense guide through the chaotic world of real-life crime. In this episode, we are going to dive into one of the most disturbing cases of mental hijacking that has ever hit the headlines. I know you've heard of this before, but we are going to get into something in particular. So stick around here as I get into the case of the Slender Man stabbing. Okay, before you think this is another recount of a horrific crime, let me tell you this story is about more than just the stabbings that happened. This is about the twisted psychological manipulation that led two young girls to commit an unthinkable act. And I mean unthinkable act. The stabbing situation was horrendous. But what made them do it? Buckle up, guys. This ride is about to get a little dark. Okay, so let's get into these two girls and their friendship. Okay, it all started with three girls: Morgan Geyser, Anissa Weier, and Peyton Lautner. At 12 years old, they were typical middle schoolers, inseparable friends. They shared secrets. They had sleepovers and, everything in between. But underneath the surface, there was something brewing that no one could have anticipated. Morgan and Anissa were deeply influenced by an online phenomenon known as Slender Man, a fictional character. Fictional. Created in 2009 as part of an internet meme. Slender Man was depicted as a tall, faceless figure in a suit who would stalk and abduct children. What started out as a creepypasta, okay, this is an online horror story. They're out there. They're everywhere. People make a lot of money off of their creepypasta stories. Well, this grew into something more sinister, definitely for these girls. So what is the influence of Slender Man? Do you know? The internet can be a very dark place, especially for impressionable minds. Morgan and Anissa became obsessed with Slender Man. They spent hours reading stories, watching videos, and all of it just fueled their growing belief in his existence, that he really did exist. I mean, this was more than just a fascination. This was a descent into a world where reality and fiction began to blur. Morgan, who had a history of mental health issues, was particularly susceptible. Her delusions about Slender Man grew stronger, and she started to believe that he was real and that he was watching them. And why was he watching them? He was waiting. He was waiting for them to prove their loyalty. This is what she believed. Anissa, too. I mean, she became convinced as well, though her motivations were more rooted in fear and the desire to fit in with her friend. Now, somehow they get a plan, right? This has to form. As their belief in Slender Man deepened, so did their need to prove themselves to him. Morgan and Anissa, they did hatch a plan that they would kill their friend Peyton. This would be a sacrifice to Slender Man. I mean, how can they think this is a good idea? How does this happen? Well, in their minds, this was the only way that they could protect themselves and their families from Slender Man's wrath. So they were in fear for their lives and the lives of their families. Now, this is where the concept of mental hijacking comes into play. These girls were not born killers. They were ordinary children who, through the toxic influence of the internet and their own vulnerabilities, they were mentally hijacked into believing that they had no choice but to commit this horrific act. And what was this act? If you don't know, because this was very big in the headlines and then it kind of just disappeared, almost as if it was too horrific and confusing to still be out there in the way that it was. People were horrified by this. It was a terrible incident. On May 31st of 2014, this plan that these girls made was set into motion. The two girls lured their friend Peyton on a sleepover night into the woods during this sleepover to have some fun. What was supposed to be this innocent game, Peyton thought, turned into a nightmare. Morgan stabbed Peyton 19 times while her friend Anissa urged her on. Peyton miraculously survives this attack after crawling to a nearby road where a cyclist ends up finding her and calls for help. And this is where we kind of need to pause, okay? Because the stabbing itself is, like I said, horrific enough. So horrific, we don't even really hear people talking about it now. It's that bad. But what led to this moment is the focus of this today. How did these girls who were once close friends with Peyton come to believe that killing her was their only option? And this is what we are going to dive into in the next part here. Okay, so mental hijacking. I'm talking about this. If you're not quite sure what I mean, or it's hard to grasp what I'm talking about because there's a lot going on here, let me explain. So in this first part, I've laid out the groundwork, okay, of how two young girls, they're drawn into this world of fantasy, okay? And it's online for all of us. We all find things online that we are drawn to, that we maybe even want to believe if we don't think it could be true. It's happening all the time. It's a fantasy for all of us to go look at things and dream about things. And these girls were doing what we all do. So nothing had happened yet. They are finding something that interests them and they get drawn in. The world they get drawn into is of fantasy and of horror, though. And it's so good and they're drawn in so much. It's to the point where they can no longer differentiate between the two, reality and what this is. And I mean, this is only the beginning, guys. In the next episode, I'm going to get into, I'm going to take a deeper look here at the psychological manipulation at play, the warning signs that were missed, and the role the internet played in shaping these young minds. What would have happened to them if they never saw this Slender Man stuff? A creepypasta made-up story so someone could make money on YouTube ended up in a murder. And that's where I'm going to leave this for now. This is a story that goes far beyond just a crime. It is a horrific crime. But there's more than one crime here, maybe. It's about how vulnerable minds can be twisted and manipulated by what they see online and really anywhere else. But online is our focus here. So stay tuned for the next part where we will peel back more layers and try to understand just how deep this influence ran for these girls. These girls are the victim of what can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. And we're just not really talking about it. But we're going to here. This is Alexis Knight, and you are listening to my series of Under the Influence, Mental Manipulation. Stick around, episode 2 coming your way.